thank you everyone for being here today. And what Bob would say is that Welcome to TRU, which is about a 28-year-old nonprofit started by Bob Ost and Gary Hughes and I believe Cheryl Davis.
Correct.
And the primary purpose was to bring together writers with producers because Bob was seeing a dearth of producers to help him bring his work product forward. And it has evolved into a fabulous organization providing all sorts of training and support and encouragement for members of the theater community and giving them opportunities to meet other people and to learn their skill and to hone their skills and to actually connect and find a way to get their work produced. Today we're going to speak with 5 people who are connected with specific programs within TRU, but I wanted to mention some of the other programs that we aren't going to be covering today, just so that you know the breadth of what we do here. In addition to the programs we're going to be talking about today, we have boot camps, which are training for producers and self-producers. We have TRU Beginnings, which are opportunities for early development of new work. We have regular monthly panels, which have shifted from in real life to virtual. We have an annual benefit. It has been the TRU Love benefit up to last year when it became TRU Speak, when we had to live in a virtual world. We have TRU Actor programs, which include the ability for actors to audition for dramatic and musical roles in front of a group of producers who sign up and attend. And last but not least, we play a little. We have a TRU Tony Party as a fundraiser. But the programs we want to talk about today are perhaps our most popular programs, and the people on the panel have a significant role in these programs. And one thing that they've all had to deal with is transitioning from an in real life presentation in a room with people to virtual. And we're going to talk about how that has gone and if it's going back or if it's going to continue as it is or maybe a hybrid. And so before we get started on those actual programs, I'm just going to call on you each individually. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your bio, and so we know how wonderful and super you are. Let's start with Tamra.
Hi, I'm Tamara Pica. I'm a producer. I produce musicals, plays, television. I'm producing theater right now in Los Angeles, New York, and New Jersey, slowly opening back up. And then I have projects in development for theater, film, and TV.
Great, thank you, Tamara. And Tamara is the tech magician behind the writer-producer Speed Date. And so we're going to be talking about that. That's one that's had to make a major right turn as we transition to virtual. And Pat Blake is a TRU board member and a hip hop impresario. Tell us about yourself.
Yes, I'm a producer and a playwright, and I'm the artistic director of Rhymes Over Beats, which is a hip hop theater collective. And one of our current projects is a play called Opening Day, which we just had a reading of on Cate's Create Theater platform.
Great, thank you, Patrick, and thank you for giving me that segue. Cate, how are you today?
Hey guys, hey Sandy. I'm Cate Cammarata. I am a producer, a director, and a dramaturg. I am TRU's literary manager for I don't know how many years, and recently I started up our own theater company, a virtual theater company, and now we're which develops and produces theater, and we're going to be producing next year. So I'm always happy to be here with TRU.
Thank you, Cate. And Cate is a facilitator of the How to Write a Musical That Works program, which he's going to be talking about today. Ric Wanetik.
Wanetik.
That was my first, which is why I said that. I'm sorry.
Hi, everyone. There'll be a quiz later, okay, Sandy? Okay.
Yes.
I'm
writing it phonetically.
I am a longtime producer, and I consider and call myself a change strategist in the arts and higher ed. I've done transitions of leadership, both planned and in crisis, for major theaters and art centers around the country and in England and Northern Ireland and South Africa. And I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, Ric. And last but certainly not least is Jane Dubin.
Hi, I'm Jane Dubin. I am change strategist and technologist are two professions that I've learned about on these TRU calls. I am delighted to be in the pleasure of all these folks that I know well. I am a commercial producer, most recently of The Prom, and a show that's coming this fall as well, to be announced later. And I'm also the president of the board of Houses on the Moon Theater Company, which is a nonprofit theater company. And I am the co-director of the producer development and mentorship program and teach the master class with Jen Isaacson, and have been doing so for years. And I think I also taught the foundations class way back when Carolyn Brown was in the class.
Well, I have to say I had the good fortune of going through the PDMP class, the master's track, with Jane. How long have you been teaching this? And tell us about what it looked like back in the day when we didn't have to do it in little boxes.
I think September will be the 7th class, the 6th year. In the first, we were in a studio, various studios, and we were in person and we met once a month. We did that until April of 2020 when we converted to Zoom. And in that very first time, my computer screen crashed. So I was seeing everybody on my phone, which is a little difficult, seeing people two at a time. But the masterclass has moved to be all virtual on Zoom. We have between 10 and 12 people, including several people who audit the class. We've moved to teaching it every 2 weeks, which has actually, in my humble opinion, been better for both the students and the teachers, because we are more focused and more concentrated. And since everybody leaves things till the last minute anyway, this way it was more continuous. So if you left it to a week before you had to do your presentation, it was next week and not 3 weeks from now. And so I think that it's actually been a better format. And also because of the community that has built up on these 65 or so Friday calls and the various online formats that have included people outside of the New York area, our class has been much more diversified nationally. And even in the fall, we had a student from London. We've had several students from California and Florida and Georgia, and someone even called in from Brazil for a few classes. And I think that adds to the community, in the sense that folks from out of New York have a chance to meet people from New York, and people from New York get a chance to meet people from other theater communities around the country.
Very good, thank you. I'm going to come back to you in a little bit so you can let us all know also about the different tracks and the kind of things that you cover in the curriculum. Tamra, you are the tech magician behind the writer-producer speed date. And there's a lot of wizardry that has to go on to move people from room to room. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of the writer-producer speed date?
Sure. My story is a story of failure, the moving into the digital space, but but success after. The Writers Producer Speed Date is in its historical form, in its in-person form, was a room or a theater space with tables with 11 producers sitting at the table, and writers would come in two groups of 11, and they would pitch for 2 minutes a project that they're working on that they had been coached through, and then we would respond back with 2 minutes, and we would have a trailing producer watching and sometimes participating depending on how the producer works with their trailing producers. And then Bob would call time, and we would have everybody would switch. The writers would go in one direction and the trailing producers would go in the other direction. So everybody got to hear, so the trailing producers got to hear all of the
Tamara, what is a trailing producer for those of us who might not know what that is?
A trailing producer is a producer, and I don't have a full definition. Bob probably has a better definition, but they're also a producer or an up-and-coming producer or someone from the PDMP program. They're someone who is not the main producer at the table who are watching. But I don't know that there's any particular like definition.
It's just fewer credits, fewer commercial credits. Somebody that's more in training, who's going to be next year's key producers.
Yeah, I've served as a trailing producer a number of times, and it's a learning experience and also an opportunity to step in and test your chops as well. Thank you, Tamara. Okay, Rick, you have been associated with the Director-Writer Communications Lab. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I've been associated with TRU for a very long time, actually, even before that. And I'm coming to you, by the way, I'm coming to you from Wilton Manors, Florida. It is a little blue dot in Florida. To talk about, you should know that I'm a behaviorist and really believe that most of what we talk about is about listening and the skill of listening and how we listen and how our behaviors affect how we listen, and the opportunity we give both the director and the playwright to learn more about who they are and how they hear things, because we all hear things differently, and how we can maybe best talk to each other in ways that are make it open and available to hear. All of us take great pride in being artists of some kind, and by its nature, artists feel very protective about their artwork and what they are doing. And how do we find a way to delve deep into analysis and conversation that can be expansive as opposed to cut off because of some kind of autopilot that we also all have, that based on our style of behavior, each one's style of behavior, might cut off conversation rather than enhance it, or cut off a dialogue that might actually be very important. And so it's a wonderfully designed program that I did, where actually directors and playwrights team up. Not really, they're not really going to produce this play, but they team up together, directors and the playwright, so that, and they haven't spent much time together. And the opportunity is to play out what a first discussion might be between a playwright and a director. And they actually role play that discussion, and we offer feedback about it in a way that is complementary to the program that they had learned earlier, which has to do with how they can best communicate with each other and how we can best be active listeners.
Thank you, Rick. Patrick, is affiliated with the Practical Playwriting Workshop. I have to say I have a personal connection to that through my late wife, who was one of the originators of the course. It has evolved over the years. Can you tell us about it in its original incarnation and bring us forward?
Yes. Originally, well, there are two reasons that make it more difficult for a playwright to get their play produced. And one reason is the play is structurally unsound. There isn't a protagonist, there isn't a beginning, middle, and end. And originally, as it was conceived, that was what was talked about. Then people who had taken it said, okay, I got all of that. Now I'm still not getting produced. Why not? And it's because they had a 60 character cast. And so Bob added a piece and me to talk about the reason that a play isn't being produced is because it's not economical to do. And so Diana and I did it, co-taught it, and she did the first 3/4 of it, and I did the last quarter, talking about just the dollars and cents. And now Cate and I are doing it, Cate Cammarata, and she's doing what Diana did, and I'm still doing my little quarter.
There was another part of it as well at the beginning. We used to do a marketing analysis of the piece. We'd have the writers talk about their piece and get them to talk about it in a way that was marketable, that was understandable to a. Also, it's similar to speed date. We try to get people to understand how a producer listens and communicate their play so that a producer could understand and comprehend and maybe even want to do it. So it was a multi-tiered. And you actually, I thought you did like half. You think you did a quarter?
Depending on things, yeah. Sometimes I did a quarter, sometimes I did a half. It depended on how.
Reflected that you did half.
It depended on how much I wanted to shoot off my mouth. I wanted to do a quarter because I wanted to listen to her, but if I couldn't get away with that. My favorite quote, Mark Twain quote, to sum up the whole idea of practical playwriting is that he said, writing a play is easy. I've written hundreds of them. It's getting one produced that's the real challenge. And that kind of sums up what the course teaches people, to make it more likely that their play will be produced, a playwright.
Lovely. That's another great segue, because that's exactly why TRU is here. And so the Practical Playwriting course is kind of the epitome of our mission out there to help people get their work produced. So Cate, tell us about how to write a musical that works.
Well, hopefully that's the same objective. You get your musical produced, right?
Yes.
So what Patrick does in one seminar, Patrick and Diana did in one seminar. It takes 3 workshops for how to write a musical that works, because roughly we divided it into 3, roughly the beginning, middle, and end. And so Bob calls the beginning the world and the wants, and then musicalizing, like I forget what Bob calls the second part, but it's basically the end of Act 1 and then going into Act 2. It's musicalizing conflict and all the things that happen really in the middle, which is the meat of the story.
It's called Conflict and Obstacles.
Thank you. Couldn't think of it. And then the third part is the finale and the climax, and how you really wrap up all the stories and send everyone away with hopefully a really memorable tune. So that's basically what it's about. And what's exciting about the workshop, I feel, is that you've got a panel of generally 4 or 5 really, really smart people who've done musicals their entire life. So for our writers who might have trouble getting even one producer to read it, to be able to stage a song and a scene and had really, really smart feedback. And the impressions is really a tremendous opportunity. And I used to say it's a real New Yorky thing, you know, because we have New York actors coming and singing your songs, and it's so tremendously exciting for all of the writers who travel in. Now, if we're going to do it virtually, it's still exciting because you're still presenting your work to the same panel of really smart people. Lost its little New York gloss here because you're not actually in New York, and having like New York actors put your words in their mouth. But I think that the takeaway and the benefit is the same.
Great, thank you. Rick, you noted that as behaviorists, people learn in different ways. How do you think having to live in the virtual world, the theater community has, it's been a requirement, we have to be here. How has that worked? Where has it fallen down? Where do you think it's going to take us moving forward?
I think the virtual world has given a whole new dimension to the theater community, to theater dialogue, and most of all, by taking an industry by its nature, which is based on scarcity, and turning it into something that is very open and available. I'm really rooting for the companies that went online in the last year to stay online and to figure out how to do both live and online, because the surprise, which was not a surprise, which was a whole new audience came to theater during the last 18 months. Not the audience that they already had, but audience members that they will never have, because they were from all over the country and even from outside of the country. And those that really understood it have really, I think, found a new niche that they can benefit from. The dilemma is, it was created, you know, everyone hated Zoom meetings before this happened. I like to say I will never get on a plane again for one meeting, because now, you know, why would you? I would say, however, that our greatest challenge is hybrid, just like it is for education right now. When we're all in Zoom together, it sort of works. We're all focused in the same way. But when some of us are live and some of us are virtual, keeping a focus and keeping an equal sort of discussion and participation is far more going to be the challenge. And that's the part we haven't practiced yet or figured out yet so well. You know, Damien at Situation was wonderful on this subject recently. And he said that you can only focus in one direction sometimes. And who are you talking to? Who's the person you're talking to, and what are the other people doing? And who benefits most? Like, do you theme it to the live, or do you theme it to the virtual? And so I think we have work to do, but the point is, it's great. And I've got to say that the not-for-profit professional theaters around the country have done very wonderful, innovative thinking, and with the BIPOC kind of overview to how we are looking at our futures together and how we want to behave, and how we want to learn and understand how to behave. Again, the not-for-profits professional theaters across the country have really dug in and started movements. I was drafted to help with some of the Southern Florida theaters here as they approach how to talk about and how to think about and how to take action on systemic racism. And it's been fascinating. I would say that those that know me know that I couldn't be more disappointed with the commercial theater and Broadway. in how they have spent this time, and how they have really looked at it as simply, when do we get back to the way it was? I think those of us that are thinking about that, we're not going back to the way it was, but we are going to something, and there will be a new kind of something, and it could be a wonderful new something. And it could be something that takes in new ways of bringing artists together, but also new ways of bringing audience together. And that's my hope.
Very good. Thank you, Rick. You talk about, virtual versus in real life and a hybrid model. And I think Zoom has come to be seen as the Kleenex of virtual presentations, when in fact there's a lot more technology to be done, to be used. Tamara, I know you've spent a lot of time working behind the scenes on the writer-producer speed date. Do you see that the virtual world is going to continue to evolve in substantial ways, so that the art form becomes something totally new?
Well, it's already evolving. So even from the time we started to the speed date to now, our first speed date was a basic disaster and it just fell apart. Even within that, what has happened behind the scenes in just the technology of Zoom has allowed us to do more. Even this week, Zoom just dropped a new target where they have dropped 50 different apps that can interplay with it. They dropped a new event space. So there's things that they're doing. They behind the scenes redesigned their breakout rooms, which allows more people to play. When we first went in, Zoom and Chromebooks just did not speak to each other. And Zoom's approach at that point was, that's not really our audience. Our audience is we don't care if people have Chromebooks. And then schools had Chromebooks, so they had to deal with that. They had to deal with a major security issue before they could even get to the breakout room. So our breakout rooms didn't change until November of last year. But there's constantly things happening in technology. And one thing that we did is we were able to take what we knew worked in real life and kind of make an adaptation to it. But we're starting to see now where people are really looking at designing for this medium. So this is a new medium. And I think that it's something that we have theater, we know what that looks like. We have film and television, we know what that looks like. And this is different. And as we start kind of thinking about the differences, about how the interplay of personalities, how we interact with each other, then I think we are going to see something new evolve. And I'm excited for that, because I play in both theater and in, TV and film. And this is a different, there's room for different and new things that we just don't know about yet. And we're already seeing within the things that we did move, a difference in interconnectivity that we didn't have before, and that is actually wonderful, that we don't want to leave. We do not want to send that away and just go back to normal. So I think I agree with Rick. We're going to move to something, we're going to try, hopefully keep and not go back to what we did before. We're going to hopefully keep some of the things that we learned here. For me as a development person, and especially with the speed date as a perfect example, we got to meet people from all over the world. And I've been producing TV and film for 30 years. And I was always like, New York and LA is your pool. And that's just not true anymore. And there's amazing writers everywhere. So it's really cool that we get to just have that connectivity with other theater makers and with each other in a way that we haven't had. And I don't think that's going to end. I certainly hope not, but I'm excited about the new things that we're going to be able to do, which we don't know what that is. We don't know what that it looks like.
Yeah, I'm just piggybacking on.
So, Tamara, that is so on. That's terrific.
Yeah, Jane, I'll be right with you.
The way you said it. And I think also we have to praise those that are taking that step, because some of the things work, some of the things don't work, and we still have to do them, and people have to share their knowledge of what's working and what's not. It was remarkable how we went from boxed readings on Zoom of, to some amazing technology that created really exciting theater on the screen. And that was because we had to, and also it took a whole generation. My generation had to learn how to do things on the computer that we, tossed away, because, I had an office with a 23-year-old. You always had to have a 23-year-old who could figure out what to do, and I could ask the questions, and we had to do that ourselves now. And I think that's going to have a lasting impact on audience and how we go forward.
I think moving from the had to the want to is where we are now.
Yes.
Where we had to, so we did, but now we kind of want to figure out what else is there. And that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah. So
And
you,
just
you had, Jay,
yeah,
you had something
piggybacking on what Tamara was saying earlier, just in the last, I don't know, whatever, Tamara and I got to chat one-on-one. We're on like a million speed dates together, but that doesn't give the producers a chance to chat. But we got to chat coast to coast. And as I was saying before, in the producer development program, we have people from all over interacting, learning from each other. When we had our London student, the US got to learn about London, London got to learn about US. And we're going to continue doing it virtually for the near future, just because of that reason. The classes are so much richer for that reason. And also, I think the change in technology that Tamara was referring to, the first classes, we didn't use breakout rooms. It was harder for students to get to know each other, even with only 10. Now we use breakout rooms all the time, and people get to talk to each other one-on-one or two-on-two, talk about, things that they're not happening in class, or things that are happening in class. People are teaming up to do projects together in class, but also now outside of class. And they're not always in the same place. And that's not something that would happen otherwise. And I think that's tremendous. And because the classes are, both, just to back up a second, the producer development mentorship program has two parts to it. There's the foundations class, which basically is for anyone that's interested in learning about the business side of putting a play up. It's not about dramaturgy. That's, we have how to write a play and how to do a musical specifically for those purposes, but it's for learning about how things get done. Whether you're a producer, whether you're a nonprofit theater, or whether you're a playwright. And people have heard me say this before, but I think it's even more important for the playwrights out there to take these kinds of courses, because they're the ones whose plays are being produced. And if you don't understand the process, you're, number one, you can't help the process. And number two, you have possibly opportunities to be screwed, shall we say, or perceive that you're being taken advantage of. And some of these things are minor. It's talking about how to look at a contract, access to attorneys, what the process is, timeframes, any things that people who are in the business take for granted and playwrights who are new don't understand, and they may or may not get frustrated by the process or have hard feelings about it. It's really important to learn about how the process works. And so anyone can take the foundations class. I think for next year, it will continue to be online for as long as it needs to be, but it will be virtual. I teach the master class. That's for people who have a specific project that they are shepherding to production, whatever that means. And we've had people who are looking for creating podcast productions, people who are creating virtual productions, people headed for Broadway, people headed for readings. So it runs the gamut, because honestly, the process is very similar, regardless of whether you're doing a play, a musical, or any other medium. And the masterclass is smaller. It's much more participatory. In both classes, you have similar kinds of curriculum, from the legal process, development, marketing, raising money, and the like, basically from page to stage. In the masterclass, the difference is it's your project that you're working on, and you have to do a series of presentations to the class. It's interactive, it's cameras on, it's talking. It's not passive learning. And if you try to be passive, I'll call on you. So don't do that. And we do 3 different presentations. In one, you are paired with one other person, and you each present the other person's show. If you're a writer, it gives you your perspective from someone else who is perhaps has a more commercial bent on what the attributes of your play. And if you're a producer, you get to see a different project and talk about it and see how other people perceive your project. Then we do what I call a hot topic, which is sort of like a mini TED Talk. You get to pick whatever you want to talk about, talk to the class for 5 minutes, and then we discuss it. It's topics that are not part of the regular curriculum. So we've talked of everything from podcasts to branding to, I don't know, lots of other things. And then in the last class, everybody does a 10-minute presentation about their own project, as if they were pitching producers or theater or investors. So it's a lot of, it's work, it's concentrated. I think the people who have participated in the class, particularly virtually, have really busted their butts and done tremendous work. The virtual platform has given us the ability to share screen. People have created presentations and videos, and it's sort of become a little competition. Like, oh, he did that, I want to do this. And the use of breakout rooms has been really, really helpful, giving people private time to talk to each other. So I love the format, and I've had a chance to meet people in person, outside of class, and hopefully in the future that will become easy to do. But our California friends and Florida friends, that's an aspect of it that you can't do in person. And I don't think you can do it hybrid either, Rick. I agree. It's really difficult to talk to 2 people at the same time, or 2 audiences at the same time. But anyway, that's a little bit about the masterclass. And I encourage anyone who is remotely interested to apply to both and trust us that we know where people belong. And there's applications on the website and such, and we'll be interviewing you too, but that's, I hope you'll participate.
And
Thank you. By the way, go ahead, Rick. Yeah.
I just want to build quickly on what Jane just said, and I may be in minority here, but some things got actually better. And Tamara, one of them I think is speed dating.
Absolutely.
Bob knows I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't take the noise, I couldn't take the distractions, I couldn't take the circus that was going on constantly. And all of a sudden, it has evolved to something that's very focused. The timing is much more productive. And so here's a case where I think the technology has really, that we did out of necessity, has really improved the learning and the teaching and the outcome.
I agree with you, Rick, and Tamara has taken it so far to make it run so much more smoothly than it did in the beginning. It really facilitates the intent of the course. Jane, you managed to mention 3 times in one sentence: raise money, raise money, raise money, and of course that is a part of the PDMP course. But it's also worth noting that that is also one of the topics that we do a separate seminar within TRU. And all of the courses that are represented by these people here represent a part of the TRU ecosystem, that we really do a 360-degree view of what you need to know to work and be productive and successful in your profession.
Yeah, right, Sandy. It's fundraising for theater boot camp, and I've taught in it, and I think, I don't know, Pat, if you've been part of it, or
Yeah.
Rick, and I think it's a really, again, it's almost like taking the PDMP program in one day. You get a little taste of everything, because there's sort of as it pertains to fundraising, because you have a lawyer, you have an accountant, you have the perspective of the investor, the perspective of the producer, and discussions about general trends. And even though I'm one of the speakers, I always come in and spend a little bit more time to listen to other people, because even if you've been doing it for years, you can never learn enough about how to approach things. Same is true with marketing. So it's one of the benefits of being a speaker, is you get to listen to everybody else.
And it's also worth noting that Jane and the other 3 instructors for the PDMP class will be in a session on, I think it's the 18th, or maybe the 16th.
16th, Monday the 16th, yeah.
Where they talk more in detail about the PDMP, the different tracks, and in more detail, and we'll take your questions in case you are interested in applying to be a part of that class.
And just note, Sandy, for the master class, we meet Mondays every other week. We will definitely be starting by October 4th. We may start 2 weeks earlier. That just depends on how things go. But that's when we get started. I believe the foundations class will be meeting on Tuesdays.
Okay. Thank you, Jane. Patrick and Cate, as I was noting, we have kind of a whole ecosystem here. As you are talking about the things that you are specifically working on, what other courses do you think within the TRU universe here are great cross-pollination courses for what you're teaching? And if somebody is going through how to write a musical that works, what else should they be considering within TRU to help them capture the level of expertise that they need to produce their play or their musical?
Well, I think I haven't participated as a playwright in the one that I teach, but I have participated in how to write a musical that works. And I thought being able to do that, both as a playwright presenting and as a producer evaluating, has really helped me a lot in my development. And I would, if I were going to do it as just a pure playwright and not being involved in teaching anything, then I would take the practical playwriting and the how to write a musical that works.
Okay.
Well, TRU is an organization that's meant to help develop producers, because without a producer, every playwright's play just kind of like lives on their hard drive. And it takes someone called a producer. Now, whether it's the playwright himself or herself, or a separate producer, or a theater company to produce it, takes someone with some vision to be able to do all of the multiple myriad numbers of tasks to actually make that happen. So I think it all starts with development. Like any industry, once your widget works, well, then you're off and running. But how in theater do you know your widget works? Well, that's the development, that TRU offers, because really that's step one. If you have a script, either whether you're commissioning it or optioning it or writing it, once it works. And then how do you know it works? Well, you get smart people, not just your friends and your family who are going to love you no matter what, but smart people to weigh in on your choices. You test it out. So TRU provides that. TRU provides that with the workshop that Patrick is running, the Practical Playwriting, the musical workshops that Bob and I do, as well as then you test it out with the TRU Play Reading Series or the musical reading series. So then once the baby is, out there and exposed, well, then how do you make the baby grow? And that's all the producing. You go to Jane's PDMP to learn exactly, how do I do this? And then you network, with, speed dating. And Ric, I love Ric's. As a director, I think that's one of the best communication things because as a playwright, well, as a producer too, but this is set up between the director and the playwright. Playwriting is so hard that you're proprietary with your ideas and then having to pry your fingers off this text to listen to someone else, called the director, to weigh in on your work is really an art. And that's why I really love not just the way that it's set up, but also how Ric walks you through. And then Ric, and then maybe some other people too, say, what you don't see, we don't see our blind spots, right? He points out the blind spot, which is really helpful. So I just can't say enough about all of them because each one is a process. Where do you fit in the ecosystem? Is your play ready? Is it not ready?
Yeah, I want to just piggyback off a little bit too, because I think that that's one of the things that I really like about TRU is that not only do people, it's not only smart people in a room, but it's also people who care about your growth. And that's been one of the things that has always kind of just it makes it very different than other programs that I've been a part of. So even the speed date, the writers get time with a coach to help them out, like one-on-one, within a group to help them, support them. But everybody, we do a tech meet up with them the day before and kind of answer all the questions that they might have and kind of calm their nerves down about not just Zoom, but also like what the process is. But, and often what I say in those tech things is absolutely what I believe that I have seen with the producers. Everybody wants you to be successful and they're going to come at it with honesty and passion, but at the same time, they want you to be successful in everything. So that's why they're offering up honesty. So I do think that like everything goes together because we don't talk about now you have the baby, how do you pitch it to people? And when you pitch in a group of 11 different producers, you get 11 different points of view. And not all of them are going to fit you personally. I can almost guarantee I know what my colleagues are going to say when I'm like, oh, they're going to say this, I'm going to say that. And I tell the writers, if you want the most out of this, you're going to come with an open heart and an open mind and understand that all of those things are probably right, but not necessarily right for you. So this is your chance to hear like 11 different takes on your project and to experiment and to play. If you heard something from me, go into Jane's room and try something else and you get 11 shots at fixing things or doing it exactly the same and hearing 11 different takes on it. So I think that the way that TRU's programs interact with each other is so important to just the overall growth of things. And I've been on Cate's thing too. And I loved being on that panel because I came away I was like, I just spent 6.5 hours talking about my favorite thing. And I learned so much. So I just really love all of the interactivity, whether you're whatever side you're on.
Yeah, I'm piggybacking on that, on everything here. I think for all of us, as we look at what the offerings are everywhere, it really kind of depends on where you are in a space of a project, in your personal development. I think the speed date is one of the most amazing processes to go through, regardless of where you are and who you are. If you're a producer and you want to produce a project, you get to listen to 11 pitches or 22 pitches rather. It's a long day, and the 22nd one, sorry, don't always get the same attention as the first one, but you get to listen to 22 pitches and hear how 22 people present their project, and maybe you learn something, or maybe you find something that you get excited about, or you meet a playwright that you get excited about. If you're a playwright, you get coached, you get to talk to people, you get people picking apart your project or complimenting you on what works or what doesn't work. And it's invaluable because you need to learn, you need to know how to talk about your project in a very short period of time, because we all have decreasing attention spans. So if you don't get people's attention right away, they're just going to glaze over and look at the next person. And for the trailing producers or the producers in training or the students that are just part of this, you get both parts of it. You get to see how producers interact with with writers. You get to see how writers pitch their projects. And if you're thinking about how do I pitch my project, you get to see how people make mistakes. You get to see how people succeed. And oftentimes we learn the most from our mistakes. Well, you get to listen to 22 people and see the mistakes they make and like, oh, I don't want to do that. Or yeah. So it's to me, that's the one that sort of wraps everything all up together. And it's why, I don't know, Tamara, how many we've been on together, but I think I've done maybe 15 or 20 of them over the years. And
we've done 5 since we went into lockdown.
Okay, I think I was on 4 of those.
Yeah, you were. I think you were on 4 of them.
But I agree with Rick that there's something about that room being live that sort of simulates a cocktail party, where you're trying to get people's attention and you hear half of what they're saying. On the other hand, it's kind of annoying and loud, and the whistles are blowing, and it's just like, Wah! And in the Zoom, even that first one that had little problems,
Failed.
Instead of 4 minutes, or 4.5 minutes that we do virtually, I was in a room with people for like 25 minutes, and it's like, is anyone going to come and get us? And we didn't know how to call for help, or like how to get out of there or leave the breakout, and it's just like hell. But I really got to know like 4 writers that day. So I think if there's so many programs, and I would hate for someone to get lost in the fact that it's like, oh my God, there's so much. You just have to focus on, if you're an actor, there's an audition. And then there are these opportunities in the play reading series. If you're a producer, there's the producer program. And there's the play reading series that ties in, because producers in the mentorship program are often producers of the plays that are picked, for the reading series. And there's just so many opportunities to develop. And I might add, and this may be impolitic, but it's ridiculously reasonable financially.
Exactly.
And Bob will know that over the years, I have encouraged him to charge more for things, because the value of what people is getting is so ridiculous for what people are paying. And he just wants it to be available to everyone. But it is available to everyone. And I just think the value of it is so tremendous. I myself went through the PDMP when there was only one, it wasn't split up into foundations and masterclass. And the opportunity, what I didn't mention before, is that for both classes, we bring in guests. The virtual, and there's where the virtual process makes it so easy. We bring in guests for half an hour. They don't have to travel to a conference room. They don't, and if they have a show going up at 7:30, it's like, hey, can you come in at 6? And we'll just get you for half an hour. It's really focused. And so we've been able to bring in some amazing people, and you get to meet a lot of Broadway and off-Broadway producers, general managers, lawyers, etc. So it's not only your community that you form in the class, but it's the community of guests that come in, and they're coming in because they want to be there. So if you have a follow-up question, they're very open to being contacted afterwards. So that's a value that is underrated in a lot of these things.
Jane, and it's a perfect segue. I wanted to make that point. Obviously, there is the knowledge that you gain from all of the courses and all of these very smart people who are teaching these courses. I myself, the best part of what I know about being in theater in New York has come from TRU. I literally had to go from 0 to 60 in a very short period of time to produce my wife's play. And it's been an amazing experience. But the part that Jane was alluding to, but we didn't talk specifically about, is the fact that every one of these courses, every one of these events, every one of these gatherings, you have a community around you. And it's not a community that you have to sidle up to in a room with a glass of wine in your hand. They are available on the screen in the chat room, and you have contact information for everybody who is attending this session and for every session that you attend. And there is huge value in expanding your network, because we all get things accomplished through people who are smarter than us. Lord knows I've learned that. And this whole panel represents that kind of person. And everybody who has any interest in theater should be taking part in these courses, trying them out. And Jane, I don't think it's impolitic at all. I think the fact that the courses are so inexpensive makes TRU unique. In some ways, it's a bit of an altruistic effort on Bob's part and Bob's intent, and we all have benefited from that. We are coming down to our last few minutes. I would love for each of you to just give a quick summary and tell me where you think virtual is going to remain in your work for TRU, and what you're looking forward to for the courses that you're representing here today. And let's start with Rick.
Oh. First off, this can be a prediction anyway, that but I truly believe that the notion of producing is about to evolve. And it may be a slow evolution, but how one produces, who produces, in what manner people and entities will be collaborating, and how collaboration, which was already a part of, such a strong part actually, of the interaction between nonprofit and commercial before this, I think will only get stronger. And I think the relationship and role of investor is going to evolve also. And, you know, sometimes we need to remember that Broadway is the outlier. Theater, the vast majority of theater, is the vast majority of great theater is happening out there in a not-for-profit environment, or rather in an institutional, or what I like to say, structural environment. And because Broadway has no structure, it's sort of, you know, an independent event, and everyone can do, each producer or each entity does what they want to do. Having the institutions were able to respond in a way far different than the individual can. And I think the strength of institution is going to be really important. And to tie that to Zoom, the access of the institution to more in their community, and also to interaction with those that are not the most familiar to them, or things that they haven't done, or people that, to broaden the circle of people, all of that is going to be helped by a Zoom-like environment going forward. And I think we need to think about things about being open to what haven't, you know, being open to trying new things. What the last year did was force us to try new things. And by the way, if you noticed, the audience was very forgiving and very supportive of that experimentation and that passion to try and figure it out. And I just hope all of that continues.
Thank you, Rick. Cate?
Well, I think that if you're a theater maker, I agree with Rick that it's not, and it never has been, New York centric. Broadway is an outlier, I agree. But you know, it does seem to be very insulated. So the accessibility of TRU, especially now that it's online, is a huge opportunity for theater makers around the world, you know, not just for a separate studio that you may pay, you know, how much money to get access to, like it's an exclusive club. This is a club, but it's very accessible. There are people who I found to be among the nicest and most caring in the entire industry. And if you want to be in this industry, I think this is a really, really good way to understand and to make connections, because it's all who you hang out with. You know, you become the people that you hang out with. So what a wonderful opportunity to hang out with people who really know what you say you want to do, so you can learn. So that's what I found TRU to be really, really important in my career.
Thank you, Cate. Patrick?
Yeah, I'm also excited by the fact that TRU is now online and can reach people outside of New York, especially since I'm not full-time in New York anymore. I really appreciate the ability to connect with people and be in the room with people, even though I'm not there and physically.
Thank you, Tamra.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Patrick. I've thrived in this year of Zoom in that I've been able to make connections with people. You know, I had to come to LA for a TV series that I've been on for the last 3 years and was really kind of distanced from TRU and from my community there. And so to really have access to my community, but then also this bigger, broader community has been really amazing. I think because I'm such a tech geek, I look forward to all these new things. You know, I'm on Zoom's meetings to see what they're dropping and how they're working together and kind of playing with them. And I've loved that people have had an open and happy heart. You know, even in the first one that didn't work out well, like Jane said, she met up with people, but that first group of writers that we didn't get to see, they all hung out in another Zoom that we put them in a happy hour. And I literally had to throw my iPad across the room because they were having so much fun and I couldn't concentrate because they were having a great time. And so I think that it has given us a place to kind of just make new friendships and communicate in a different way. But I'm also super excited to see what's next, because every single industry, film and TV, during this year, we don't know the difference of if we're watching Netflix or NBC. So, you know, the whole entire industry has shifted to this digital format. And so I'm kind of excited to see what this new thing is and how we can just push the boundaries in different ways. And again, coming with that open and happy heart to kind of muddle through some of the difficulties has been what has really helped us to do that and make those new changes. So I'm excited about it.
Jane, last but not least.
Yeah, clean up here. Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that we are actually, we have a couple of Californians and out of the city, and we're all over the place, the 6 of us on the screen, talking to people who are all over the place. That's the part that has, I think, helped a lot of people get through all of this. I think the idea that taking a script and putting it on the stage is the only path has been shot out of the water. In my own case, I'm working on a musical that we are serializing for podcast, and some others have gone straight to film that they're going to use to market. So some of these subsidiary exploitations of theater are happening first. Cast albums, concept albums, and things to create a market for potentially having the theater live. But it's not, I think we've realized that that's not the only thing that exists, that there are other things that we can do. And like Tamara, I'm excited to see, I'm okay techie. I'm not the tech creator or the technologist, but fortunately I know some. So having new tools to do some of the things that are part of the process to facilitate. My show has a writer in LA, one in Manhattan, one in Westchester, a director that's upstate. But we can get a meeting together in a day or two, whereas otherwise we'd have to like, what I gotta go. And even teaching, you know, I can be downstairs, you know, doing something completely different, and then 5 minutes later I'm in class, and when the class ends I'm still in my home, as opposed to taking, you know, an hour and a half to get home. And I'm excited, frankly. I teach the class because I learn so much from the students that are taking it, and hopefully they learn as much from me and from each other, and find community in those students as well. And so I'm excited for the next group, and I'm excited that a lot of people from the spring are interested in coming back, and we continue to do what we're doing and make new stuff. So.
Thank you, Jane. So that brings us roughly to the end of this. I did want to point everybody to our website if you need more information, truonline.org. As you know, we don't charge a fee necessarily for this session, the weekly community gatherings, but would love it if you are willing to support TRU to go to the website and make a donation. And I also want to thank our organizational sponsors. You can also see on our website, which are Backstage, and RK Green with the Storyline Project, who has contributed significantly in support of our programs. So that's it for our panel today.